I'm Miles Booth, and welcome to the MD Press interview series with the authors of the upcoming anthology of The Legends of the Werewolf Hunter. And this is a book that we're doing featuring stories from the works of Brian P. Easton and his autobiography of a Werewolf Hunter series. Today we have Thom Brannan, a contributor, and you are more than likely familiar with many of his works. He's got a lot out there, and it's all available on Amazon, and we'll be discussing some of those works. Thom, how are you today?
I'm doing good so far.
Good.
Good. So far. I've only been awake for about an hour, so we'll see.
Okay. All right. Well, I hope the coffee is kicking in and doing its job. So, with the rest of the authors, I've started by asking them how did they discover Brian's work, and how did they, once they got involved, finally get in touch with Brian at some point. So, what's your story with that? How did you first find out about an autobiography of a werewolf hunter?
It was when the first book got picked up by Permuted, along with the second book, and I back then everything was fresh and new, so every time they'd pick something up, I picked it up and read it,
Yeah.
and I loved the first book. I cannot stress how hard I love that first book. And then on the now defunct Permuted boards, I connected with Brian, and we talked a bit. I ended up getting an early copy of the Lineage so that I could blurb it.
Yep.
And I will always be proud that he used it, one. And two, I called him the Kurosawa of the werewolf novel.
I remember.
Because it's true.
Yeah.
And I've been very happy to have the inside track. Well, not the inside track, but I get to see stuff.
Yeah. Very cool.
And yeah, Brian's been very cool. And it was a little intimidating, to be honest with you, because unlike the rest of us fucking idiots, he was mature. And I'm not saying that he's older. It just seemed like a more mature person, and that was intimidating.
Yeah.
Because, like I said, like just reference, we're a bunch of fucking idiots.
Yeah, there were a lot of unique personalities on that board.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And Brian's always been a little bit. I think his writing kind of reflects his personality a bit. It's not no nonsense, but it's definitely more a little bit more. How do you say? Not serious so much as just maybe mature is the word.
Yeah, I think it's what it feels like.
Exactly. So when you discovered his work and got in touch with him, I've asked some of the authors too, and I kind of love this question. Where do you rate his werewolves and the whole great pantheon of werewolf fiction?
Well, I'm going to tell you, when I think of werewolves in my head, when I visualize the werewolves, two things pop to mind. Michael J. Fox in Teen Wolf, and that is not Brian's werewolf.
I'm sorry to hear.
Brian's werewolves are. Do you remember the TV show Werewolf from the late '80s, mid to late '80s? With it was formatted like the Hulk. The guy's got bit by a werewolf person. He's looking for the progenitor of his line so he can kill him. Who was played by Chuck Connors.
I remember. I remember people talking about it. I don't think I've ever seen that show. I've looked for it here and there. I don't know that it's. I haven't looked for it in a while. Maybe it's on YouTube or something like that.
It might be.
I never saw it, but the late '80s. That was I was more likely to be in a bar.
I watched it then, and since then I found a copy of it. But the main werewolf was played by Chuck Connors, and those transformation scenes, I'm surprised that they made it on TV, but the special effects was done by Rick Baker.
Yeah.
Superb. It looked like a giant, deranged, shaved bear. And when I think of the werewolves in Brian's book, that's where they are.
Yeah, okay.
And,
every once in a while.
And for everything else that I've seen, the Howling and Wolfen and Dog Soldiers, it's up there in the top 2 or 3.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, I like the images of the Howling.
Yeah,
Had obviously. I actually preferred those. I think more so than American Werewolf in London.
yeah, yeah. Brian's creatures, they're more than just a physical monster too. They're
Yeah,
the
absolutely. Yeah,
mental monsters,
all into the psyche.
spiritual. Yeah, they're like a Swiss Army knife of the monster. They get you from every side.
Exactly. So, you are no stranger to writing werewolves yourself.
That's
So,
right.
yeah, tell us a little bit about what you've written.
Well, I have a werewolf book. I know there's two books in the series, but the first one is really the werewolf book called Pavlov's Dogs, and I wrote it with E.L. Snell, my worthy opponent, and that was his idea, and he had the basically, when you're a kid and you pit a scorpion against a beetle or whatever in a coffee can.
Yep.
That's what he wanted to do.
Yep.
And he had already written a book with zombies and vampires, and I guess he had been talking with either Jacob from Permuted, original Permuted, or John Sinceri. The Mythos fans will know him. And they put this story together about zombies and genetically engineered werewolves. And so at some point, I came out to the project and we busted it out. And then we wrote the second book, The Omega Dog, which isn't actually a werewolf book. There's a lot of strangeness going on there, and some of the readers didn't take to it as well. But yeah, we're gonna do what we're gonna do. But to appease them, we wrote a trilogy of novellas called Dog Years, which goes back to the werewolf, back into the werewolf fold, and to where the werewolves and the zombies came from. It's more of the versus style.
As far as writing werewolves, besides Brian, who else do you consider to be an inspiration, literature-wise? Or I guess
Literature-wise.
I mean,
well, there's Wolfsour, Robert McCammon. He had his hero werewolf, which is diametrically opposed to Brian's werewolves, and there was also St. Peter's Wolf. It's a rare book apparently because I've been trying to find another copy of it, but it's about a set of silver teeth that you put them in and you become a werewolf, and that was pretty nuts. Yeah, like I said, I found a copy of it at a used bookstore somewhere, and I accidentally divested myself of that book. So I'm looking for another copy, and I can't find it anywhere.
what's it called?
St. Peter's Wolf.
Okay,
It's supposed to be a divine curse.
gotcha.
Yeah. And there's also the occasional werewolf that shows up in the Dresden Files.
Right.
Not too much. So, from what I have on my shelf, when it comes to the savagery of it, it's all Brian stuff.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree with that one. He does it the best.
Yeah, he's actually, not just for horror books or for werewolf books. His autobiography of Werewolf Hunter is actually in my top 10 of my top 10 books.
Top 10 of all time.
Yeah, he shares shelf space. Yeah, he shares shelf space with Grendel by John Gardner, with House of Leaves by Danielewski.
Yep.
And Lord of the Rings. It's up there. It's up there. It's like I had said before. It's, the maturity of the writing is one thing. The vividness of the landscape that he captures. He's got that cinematographer's eye.
Without question.
And I'd be really excited to see that on my screen.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's something that we've talked about with the other authors as well. Just as far as would your preference be a streaming series format or feature film format? And
well, it's episodic in nature. The first book is episodic in nature, so this would be either like they did with Lord of the Rings or one of the streaming services. Definitely.
And I did the editor's cut of Lord of the Rings. What did that wind up being? 12 hours and something odd minutes, anyhow. So that's a full season of streaming.
Yeah. It's got all the breaks built in.
All right. Let me ask you a question. I'm going to segue a little bit here because you mentioned it. House of Leaves. And my first question is, did you actually read the whole thing? And my second question is, did you have a copy where you got all the effects that he intended? All the upside down pages and spirals and all that?
Yeah.
All right.
I've actually, I've read the book several times. Okay. And I had the full copy. I actually bought it more than once because I lent it out and not got it back, or I maybe threw one in the ocean. Look, I used to work offshore, and at one point I was on the rig, and the rig was being towed from the Gulf of Mexico to Brazil.
Okay.
And I was reading House of Leaves. And it got to the point where we were going slower and slower. I mean, we were going 5 knots and then 4 knots and 3 knots and 2 knots with no change in sight. But our arrival date kept moving up sooner and sooner and sooner. And everybody was confused. And I was like, I know what it is. It's this fucking book. So I threw it overboard.
Did that work?
And it worked.
Okay.
So, hey, shout out to Mark Z. Danielewski for that.
Right, exactly. All right. Yeah, that's an interesting work for sure.
Yeah.
Stands on its own. So going back to what we were talking about as far as movies and streaming series, have you seen anything in the past couple of years? Because it's kind of a new-ish format. We didn't grow up binge watching things, and you didn't have nearly as much content. And I feel like a lot of it's been done pretty well. Do you have any favorites that you've been able to?
Oh, well, yeah. I got to give it to the House of Mouse for The Mandalorian.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I love it.
Okay.
I love it. And I paid for it one time, Disney. I'm paying for it again. And,
yeah, you are.
Yeah, I probably.
One thing they're good at.
Yeah. I enjoyed DreamWorks' Voltron, Legendary Defenders.
Okay.
I think I was in the minority there, but whatever. What else? See, I consume most of my TV on demand. I work an odd shift, so I don't get to see things as they come on. So I'm never sure if I'm watching something from a regular TV station on demand with no commercials, or if I'm watching Netflix, because I'm not in charge of the remote in my house.
Okay.
So I show up late. I look up from what I'm doing, and TV's on. And I say, "Oh, good, TV's on." So I'll watch.
What else have you worked on besides what you talked about? You talked about the Pavlov's dogs.
Yeah.
We kind of briefly touched on Before the Dawn, and you've got a sequel to that.
Right. Before the Dawn is my urban fantasy series. Mm-hmm. My elevator pitch for it is it's either Dirty Harry Potter or 00 Dresden.
Right.
And that's it. And people know what I'm talking about when I say that.
Yep.
But it's the story of Yo, and I'm probably pretty sure that's the first time people have heard that name out loud.
I think so.
It's that's how it's pronounced. It's pronounced Yo, and John Chang, the Austin liaison for the Century, in their continuing adventures together in the occult underworld. The Centurions, there's 100 of them worldwide. They serve to enforce the Great Pact, which allows the supernatural and the natural to live in well, maybe not in harmony, but it's like the coexist bumper sticker. If it said "or else."
Okay.
Right. So the first book is their casino royale, if you will. They're getting together, learning each other, and having to forge their way through their first case. Mm-hmm. And then Vampire Sky is just another case. I'm trying to get these so that they don't have to be read in order or in sequence. And I'm trying to, like Robert B. Parker's Spencer novels. You don't have to read those in order.
Right. You can
get more out of it. Yeah, you get more out of it if you do.
Yeah.
But you don't have to.
But it's not necessary, sure.
Right. It's not like the Dresden Files. Right. Those 14, 15 books. You can just jump into that. No, you can't just jump into that. So that's what's going on there. I'm actually working with Snell on something else, since this is a Monster Hunter channel. Yeah. I'm going to tell you about a book that we whipped up.
All right.
It's called Nikola.
Say what's the title?
Nikola Tesla and the Emperor of Plagues.
Oh, okay. Good.
Yeah, we finally put the finishing touches on that, and we're searching for a home. We're not sure how we're going to do it yet. If we're going to seek representation and try to place in one of the big boys, or go more grassroots and do it ourselves, or find a small press. We've killed 2 small presses. Maybe we didn't kill them, but that's how it feels, because we placed a book with them and then they went under. So maybe we killed 2 small presses with that book.
Yeah, a lot more than 2 have gone under.
Yeah, that's true.
I think it has more to do with the atom bomb that took out the entire industry and economy surrounding it. So do you have an elevator pitch for this one?
Tesla is a Ghostbuster in Ravenloft 2000 AD. Now, there's a lot of things you need to know for that to make sense.
And
Ravenloft. Yeah, yep. You're better off reading the book. That's right. Ravenloft is a Dungeons and Dragons setting. It's like Transylvania with its own vampire lord. Yeah, it's alternate, not an alternate universe, but it's a splinter universe. 2000 AD just references the time that had gone by. Tesla, he ends up in a parallel universe to this one, and has to use his science to not just get back, but to survive, because it's populated by monsters and magic.
Excellent. Yeah, going on my TBR list.
Yeah. As soon as we find a home, I'll let you know.
Exactly. Okay.
But we're working on that. I've written a long time ago. I got my start with zombies by being a part of Z.A. Rex Warning Star strain. And that actually led to my first book, Lords of Night. Now, I've since been returned Lords of Night from the publisher, and I have written a sequel, so I'm trying to place those also.
Good.
So I have a lot of stuff that nobody's read yet.
Right. Cool.
So I'm excited. I'm excited to get to that point where I have a back catalog for people to say, hey, I like this. What else is this fool done?
Exactly.
I'll show it to
the more stuff you get out there, the more stuff, somebody else might pick up. They're looking for looking for material for streaming and so forth and so on.
Oh, that too. Yeah.
That's popping up every day.
Yeah, that's part of the mercenary side of it. And I'm not a big fan of of all the commerce of it, but the older and more mature I get, the more I've accepted that part of the author's life.
Yeah, there's that. I think, though, too, speaking for myself, just seeing what they can do with the story now, as far as how quickly it can be developed into something that's really good quality on television. Because I think the dream for a long time was, I hope they make a movie out of this. Nobody said, I hope they make a TV show. That didn't used to happen. But now things get the treatment, and you have to say, wow, I hope it does get, into a series pitch somewhere. And they desperately need good supernatural / horror / monster hunting stories.
Yeah. I've actually felt that way since Dexter.
Yeah.
First season of Dexter follows the first Dexter book mostly.
Yep.
And since then, I've been thinking, wow, maybe if I write this way, maybe it'll get used this way.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And there's a formula to it. Have you ever messed around with screenplays?
One time. not very successfully. I have a short story that I decided I was going to rewrite it into a screenplay or an audio presentation, like old timey radio with more than one voice person and sound effects and music and the whole 9 yards.
Yep.
I got about 4 pages in with it. It's hard. It's hard. You don't realize it until you're doing it. But if you listen to the old timey radio, there's no real narration. There's no background stuff. They're like, hey, I know you just came into the room and you can see me, but I'm tied to this chair.
Yeah.
Untie me.
Exactly.
Right. So the listener could be like, oh shit, he's tied to a chair. And that's to do that smoothly without it sounding all janky like that is
all
difficult.
dialogue. Yeah.
I don't have the touch for that.
Yeah, no, it's a whole different thing. I've asked some of the other authors this. Sometimes we have time for it. Sometimes we don't. It just doesn't fit in. But it might fit in well here, and you can tell me, how you feel about answering it. But I've brought up before the disaster, the flaming dumpster fire that is the universal monster. So that's, hey, just off your head. Do you have a way to fix that? What would you do with that if it landed in your lap? Because you can't do any worse.
What I would do, I would either go back and start with the Mummy, not the Tom Cruise Mummy, but the Brendan Fraser Mummy.
Okay.
I would start with that, and then I would do something like what they did with the Tarantino verse. Some of the Tarantino verse, some of the movies are real life, and some of the movies are movies in the Tarantino verse. So I would say Dracula Untold, and that's a work of fiction inside it. Because I don't know, some people liked it. I'm over it. But the Wolfman, I really like the Wolfman, and I think that would have been a good stepping stone into something else. Because at the end of that, the inspector, he's got his monthly problem, and they could have gone from that into something else. I think the Mummy with Tom Cruise, it could be recut to remove all the. See, I can't even remember the name of the organization anymore. It's been blocked from my brain.
Yeah, it wasn't all that memorable, I don't think.
Yeah. I mean, to be completely honest and easy about it, it would be the best if they would just follow the template that Marvel has laid down.
Yeah.
Do your individual movies and then link them up in the end.
Yeah.
You see how DC is paid for not doing it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That way. They wanted everything that Marvel had, but they didn't want to. I don't want to say they didn't want to put into work, but they didn't want to put into work. They tried to jump right into a Justice League movie after a couple of Batman movies.
Yeah.
If they want that MCU money, they gotta do the MCU work.
Yeah. Well, I think that it was a lot of art and skill that actually got put into that whole MCU as well.
Yeah.
So you gotta do it and do it well. Did you see the Snyder cut yet?
No, I have not.
Okay. Any interest in seeing that
one? Yeah, I'm gonna watch it. Yeah, I'm gonna watch it eventually. But like I said, I have I got a funky work schedule, so
I hear you.
I'm up for on my days off. I end up watching like a couple episodes of Resident Alien. That with the family unit.
Okay.
And I haven't watched much else.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes they're good for watching and sometimes aren't. I spent years not watching any television.
Yeah.
With the pandemic, for whatever reason, everyone's schedules changed and I've caught up on a few things. So.
Yeah. I know if I want to sit down and watch the Snyderverse, I need a 4-hour chunk of time.
Yeah, I don't know that has to be viewed all in one sitting.
Yeah.
I was curious, how much different that movie would be than the first one. And I'm not going to go into it and spoil it for you, but it's it is different. The story is a good bit different, more than I
Yeah.
expected. Um, I'm still trying to figure out how I feel about it, other than that. So
Yeah. Well, I had heard that there's a lot more character development and backstory, and I'm like, well, it's twice as fucking long. Of course there is.
right,
You know, it better have more development and backstory.
more backstory. I think it's more of what they already had presented. I mean, it's a little bit more, but I wouldn't say that it's anything that you're watching. You're like, oh, now that explains everything, and this character just came to life for me. It's like, wow, I just watched twice as much shit about that character. Okay, and they don't do it's not bad. I'm not gonna slag on it or anything, but it's I think it's a tough job to try to take something that was one thing and make it into another.
Yeah.
I get why the director wanted to do it, because it's different. It has a different feel, a different pace, a different presentation.
Right.
Uh, and those two directors, Joss Whedon and Snyder, are really different. And Whedon came at it with an Avengers mentality.
Right.
Snyder wanted to do something different. And you could tell he wanted to go deep, but I don't know that that was the franchise to try to do that with.
Right. Or if that was the entry in the franchise to do it.
Yeah, well, I mean that, and Superman. You just don't make a dark character out of Superman. That's trying to get Sylvester Logan James to deliver presents to kids at Christmas time. It just
Yeah.
I'm not feeling it.
Yeah, that was. I mean, I enjoyed Man of Steel.
Yeah.
But for our modern mythology, Superman is a sun god, and he should be the figure of light and hope or whatever. And he's not very much that in that movie,
Exactly.
for my watching.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm sorry, but back to the Universal.
Yeah.
What they should do, really, is like I said, the Wolfman, the original Mummy, Wolfman, and then they should lobby, if they don't already. I don't know who did the distribution or the production of The Shape of Water, but fold that in, because my favorite of all the Universal monsters is probably the Gill Man from Creature from the Black Lagoon.
Yep.
And they don't have to redo it if they already have it.
Yep.
And Guillermo del Toro has a beautiful eye for that.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And if they did redo it, if they did decide to redo it, I had read that there was a novelization of the original Creature movie, and the Gill Man was the same size as the ship they were in.
Okay.
And it took down a helicopter, and it was all kinds of wacky. So I might like to see that. A giant Universal monster might be fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I could do that. That'd be cool. I'd like to see any iteration of the Gill Man. That's my favorite too. So that's interesting, because I hadn't heard anybody say anything about Del Toro bringing his guy into it. But that's a good tie-in.
I think that would do it.
And then you
Gill
follow
Man?
the other movies in meta, like you're talking about, and that's an interesting take.
Yeah. I mean, you don't have to undo anything that you've done. You just shunt it to the side.
Well, you would just acknowledge it, put it in its place, and then move forward down the path that you want to.
Yep.
That's very, very smart. Very smart. I wouldn't be surprised if your phone started ringing after this interview.
I occasionally do say a smart thing. I like to mark my calendar when I do, so I can point it and say, "Look, see that?"
Yeah, we got this one. We got this one on video, so you're covered.
I've got video forever. Unless you decide to edit it out and blackmail me. Oh,
no!
Damn it, Miles.
No, we're trying to promote here.
Right.
We keep all the good stuff. So that's yeah, you kind of blew my mind with that one. Del Toro, all right, folding the rest up in the meta universe, so that's good. I like that. Cool. Good thing.
That's what I bring to the table. I have outside the box thinking.
Yeah. Well, you get paid the big bucks, right?
Yeah, big bucks.
Yeah, right. I don't think they're ready.
My publishing endeavor so far has been a non-profit organization. I could probably file for that kind of protection.
That's the small publishing business in a nutshell.
Yeah.
Okay, moving away from publishing for a minute. You do music as well.
I do music as well.
Yeah,
I do music as well. You're correct. You're correct. I
that one on video too.
Yeah, that's on video too. Some years ago, I don't want to say how many years ago, because I'm vain, but I wrote a concept album around Operation Valkyrie, and I do have to say it was before the movie. Damn it! But I wrote a concept album on Operation Valkyrie while I was on a road trip. I I had an acoustic guitar and I wrote all the main riffs and the lyrics. And then when I got back, I recorded it over the next 9 months or so. And then I got some real money and I decided to buy a home studio setup. So I have a home studio setup. I've got Pro Tools and the mixer and all the gear. And my big goal at the time was to take that demo I had recorded and make a real album out of it. That I didn't know how to use Pro Tools. So to learn how to use Pro Tools, I wrote Welcome to the Strangerhood, which is an album of 11 songs that are all dedicated to and inspired by the original Permuted lineup of novels from Jason S. Hornsby, from Z.A. Reck, from Dr. Kim Pathenroth, from C. Delaney, from Brian Easton. You heard of him? From Ian McKinnon, and each one of those songs, it's about either about the book or it's got the same feel as the book. Like the seven habits is a time travel zombie story, but the main feeling of that book is a regret. So when I wrote the song for the 7 habits, I didn't write a time travel zombie song. I wrote a song about regrets and maybe a little murder, but whatever, it's regrets. So I wrote that called, like I said, Welcome to the Strangerhood. It's on Bandcamp under Czar Tambour, which is Soul Drum, I think. And that went so well that I was able to read a book of poems by Jonathan Moon, another horror author. And I picked out 5 or 6 of these poems and I said, hey, Mr. Moon, is it all right if I adapt these to the song? And he said, yes. So that's the second album that's on there. It's called Moon Song, 6-song EP of adapted poetry. And it's thoroughly unpleasant. I made my daughter cry. So there's that. Not because it's bad, just because it's dark. So there's that. There's 2 on Bandcamp. I'm actually working on more Dracula. I'm working on an album or maybe a series of EPs that tells the novel story from end to end.
Okay.
The first one is called 52 Days. The first one's called 52 Days. That's the length of time that Jonathan Harker was in Castle Dracula.
Right.
And that tells his story in there.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. That's a big undertaking.
It is a big undertaking. It's going to be a lot of songs and a lot of different textures and things. But I'm growing and learning I hesitate to say as a musician because then I feel like I'm putting on airs because I'm really not. But I'm learning the recording process even better. I'm learning how to better use my tools. Right. Just like with the writing, I'm getting to where I want to be.
Sure. That's all a process and it never ends.
Yeah.
Never. I mean, that's, there's nothing that you can't look back and say, oh, I'd like to tweak that or do something a little different, or I figured out this and now I'd apply that.
Yeah.
You say you hesitate to say musician. I've got the little clip of music that I use as the lead in and the intro and the outro for these interviews. and you got a hold of that, and you've. I'm going to compare them while we're talking here. You did your own Thom Brannan version,
Yeah.
which to my ear sounds like you're completely a musician.
Well, that's I'm a workman. You know, there's like a difference between it feels like semantics, but it's like the difference between a carpenter and a woodworker.
Yeah.
You know, a carpenter, they'll build you a chair, but a woodworker will make it beautiful.
Right.
That's. I feel like I'm still learning the hammer and saw phase, and I'm not into the little flourishes yet.
Okay. Well, that's
It's semantics.
I think every artist feels that way to a degree, or every artist that actually applies themselves. But I also think that it's the kind of thing where once you reach a professional level, 99% of the population is never going to be able to tell the difference between the chair maker and the woodworker. Anyhow, they just know what they want. So, we're over here beating ourselves up all the time, and everyone else is like,
Right.
"That's amazing," and you're like, "Yeah, I could be better."
It's okay.
Yeah,
It could be better.
exactly.
Yeah.
That's
Well, I mean, it's good. It's good to keep yourself humble too.
yeah.
My head will swell like that if I let it.
Well, so you get to enjoy that part of the time too, because there's no end of things that'll unswell you.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Just around the corner. So yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Especially, like once a month, I go into Amazon and I read my reviews, and that brings me back down to earth when I'm feeling especially good about about my writing.
Or it's just confusing as it could possibly be. How many Amazon reviews have you seen that don't even have really anything to do with the material that the author presented? It just has to do people like, I hated this book because, I was just in a car wreck and I had a bad day at work. You're like, what do you want me to do with that? I mean,
Why do I get 2 stars because of your accident? No.
Yeah.
Well,
they just felt like giving you 1 star for, their bad day. Like,
well, it's some of the reviews like that, they just slide off. I don't worry about them too much, and it doesn't really affect my average star rating too badly.
Yeah.
Although the number of reviews is quite startling in how few there are, because I don't know if anybody else is experiencing this, but my first book, the zombie book, got a lot of reviews, and then my next book got about 2/3. My next book got half. My next book got half, and my next book got half. This next book that I'm going to be putting out, I'm going to owe Amazon reviews, I think.
Oh, okay. You're going to go into the negative.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to write a couple reviews just to keep it from dipping into the red.
Proceeding below.
Yeah.
I think that going with anecdotal observations here, but it seems like a decade ago, people had maybe more time to write reviews, and I also think that they were on their computer a lot more. I think you fast forward these days, and everybody's on their phone, and I don't think that people really just want to tap out a review with their thumb.
Yeah, tap and go. It's a truncated experience.
Yeah, it really is. I noticed that in social media in general. Everything's going to, it was 140 characters or less, and now it's just a smiley emoji.
Yeah.
And that's 3 of those, and that does the trick. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I'll take all the emojis you want to give me. Anybody out there, I'll take any emoji you want to give me, except for if you didn't like it. If you didn't like it, keep that shit to yourself.
Okay. Yeah, exactly. Have emojis, or do you just type out the old school, bust out the elite language?
Yeah. If you can't do anything about it, right? So you might as well just roll with it and accept it as the new thing.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, there's no controlling it, and we have no idea where it's going to be 5 and 10 years from now. So you just gotta kind of bear with it. Okay. Can you tell us a little bit about the story that you're writing for Brian?
The story that I'm writing for Brian is right now, it's tentatively titled Super Fortress. Okay. And it's set in 1951. one of the characters that I'm using is actually a character from the first book, Salinger. He's one of the people that one of the recon people that Sylvester goes on a trip with, and he ends up getting, spoiler alert, he ends up getting blown to smithereens by the Viet Cong. Not the Viet Cong. No, yeah, the Viet Cong. I'm sorry, I'm getting his timeline mixed up with my timeline. So, Super Fortress is Salinger 15 years earlier at the start of his career in Korea. He's part of a K9 unit, and he is somewhere, he's not entirely sure where because he's not clear to know that, but he's somewhere guarding a plane wreck. And it appears that plane has one more passenger than they thought it did. I'm actually pretty excited about how it's turning out. You know, because you get to see a not as experienced, rougher around the edges Salinger,
yep,
and the creature he's with, and his dog. He's got a dog. He's part of the K9 unit,
right?
And cool. So I did some in preparation for this. I started to read a book about canines in Korea. I think that might have been the title of the book, Canines in Korea. And man, I did not know how badly these stories would affect me, but the stories of heroism and the sacrifice of the dogs and the people giving up the dogs, it really affected me. So I'm going to see if some of that translates into the story. It probably won't because I'm numb. It probably won't. But I'm very happy with how it's shaking out right now. I do have one thing I want to mention. I said that I wouldn't do it. I said to myself that I wouldn't do it, not you. But I know you're probably like, do what? Last night on the radio, I heard that the radio station in the area is doing some kind of charity work for multiple sclerosis, and research, charity work for multiple sclerosis research. Wow, why was that so hard to come up with? And my third or fourth book, Sad Wings of Destiny, I had declared back in the day that all the proceeds of Sad Wings of Destiny would be donated to multiple sclerosis research. Yeah. And so that remains true today, except there hasn't really been any proceeds. So by the time this airs, it'll be around my birthday, maybe. So I'll provide links for that and for the century work, and anything that comes in will go to multiple sclerosis research.
Fair enough. All right, we'll put a link up, and hopefully you can change that amount.
Yeah, we'll go from the red to the black, maybe.
Right. Well, anything else? Yeah. Good cause. Very good.
That's the only other thing I had.
All right. Well, thank you for
thank you
joining me, and looking forward to your story in Brian's book, and definitely to the other books that you've discussed, and maybe here in a tune or two. All right, sir. Well, thank you, and until next time.
All right. I'll see you around, Miles.